Hello everyone, my name is Victoria Mukuni and I'm currently a doctoral student in the Foundations of Education program at Virginia Tech in the United States. And today I'm going to be talking about risk cultures, beef traceability, and food safety in both the US and in Zambia. And before I move on, I would also like to mention that this particular presentation was part of my master's thesis. And so I have a background in food science and I did my master's in science and technology. And I'll talk a little bit about why I chose to do this kind of work. So I will start by introducing the topic and I'll talk about some of my research questions, the methodologies I used, my key findings, the implications of this study, and also I'll share my concluding thoughts. So I explored the history of food safety systems in both the United States and in Zambia because I am very much interested in the social sciences perspective on food safety. So I focused primarily on traceability of beef as a form of risk management, and I used beef because it is a common or shared food between the United States and Zambia. My argument was that food safety systems look the way that they do because of how regulatory systems define risk. And also, some of these risks are brought to light because of traceability. So my research questions were, how does each nation form its modern food safety regulatory system, and why does it look the way that it does? How does each of the two countries define and approach risk when it comes to food safety? And also, what is the role of traceability of beef in risk management and in turn food safety? So to answer these questions, I primarily used a desk study approach where I reviewed book chapters, journals, and news articles. And I also used empirical data because I was born and raised in Zambia. So I used some of my experiences to conduct this study. So because this was part of my master's thesis in science and technology, I employed a comparative analysis. And I also used some science and technology scholars and their theoretical frameworks, especially for defining what risk cultures are and also for information infrastructures. So this afforded me to see how colonization's availability of technologies, culture, and diet inform the structure of food safety systems. So some of my key findings were that in the US, technologies like traceability bring to the forefront issues of trust by bringing to light infrastructures that would have otherwise remained hidden. And what I mean here is that for products like beef, you can very much see on labels how information about, for example, their harvest methods can only appear on the label because of traceability. And I'm also very much aware that not every piece of information that appears on a label is because of traceability, and sometimes it's more of a marketing strategy than food safety or traceability. So for the Zambian consumers, they weren't so much concerned about the kind of information that appears on beef labels. Perhaps this was due to an issue of literacy and also affordability and availability. So for both the US and Zambia, I found that what influences their risk cultures is the trust in institutions, in their political leaders, in science and in technology. So for the Zambian public, I found that trust was very much located in political leaders and in individuals and also in brands. So for the United States, for the public in the United States, trust was very much located in information and also knowledge of specific producers or manufacturers. And like I mentioned before, this information was very much what was found on the label and how companies prove that what they have on the label is legitimate. So some of the implications of my study are that definitions of risk are going to differ in space and time, and they're set by regulatory agencies, even though they mean something different for consumers. And I also came to realize how these definitions of risk, or what consumers think risk is, can in a way find its way in regulations, and therefore it ends up going back to how regulatory systems define risk. So some of the most important risks I came across in relation to food safety were health concerns, harvest methods, financial, nutrition, security, and safety. So like I mentioned before, traceability makes these risks more visible. So I also found how traceability is an aspect of information infrastructure, and it can also be used to regulate markets. And traceability has also exposed niche markets, because not every consumer is going to be concerned about harvest methods or health records of the animals they're consuming. Some consumers just are concerned about the price of the beef products they're buying. So in conclusion, the US public showed more of a mistrust in science and in institutions because of its history of institutional failures. So in the US, traceability was used as a possible solution to establish credibility between manufacturers and consumers. For the Zambian public, traceability was mainly used as a way of combating economic risks associated with beef, which included using it for supply-side management. The US also used traceability as a form of supply-side management, but they also incorporated other issues like health concerns and also establishing trust with consumers. So for both the US and Zambia, traceability is both a financial and health concern, and also a means of combating risks associated with consumer mistrust. So that is it for me, and these are my contact details. Thank you very much.